Hi, and welcome to Talk Straight Bible. I'm your host, Jeremiah Zantonetti. We're still on Put Your Face in the Torah. What a wonderful title. I love it. And we're looking at Psalms 119, verse 37 this morning. So let's kick right in. Turn away mine eyes from beholding vanity, and quicken thou me in thy way. Turn away mine eyes from beholding vanity, and quicken thou me in thy way. You know, vision is something that is so important. When we see that God has given us two eyes, and in between he's given us a nose of Pharaoh, and sometimes we can get divided. It's called double vision, by having a double mind. James says that a man of double-mindedness will not receive anything from the Lord. Actually, it means to have two souls. And that happens to us on the way. We see so many things, and we get caught up on things. Well, it says to turn away my eyes. Now, before we go there, I want to go into Genesis chapter 15, verse 1. And it says, after these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abraham, I am thy shield and thy great or exceeding great reward. You see, the Lord came to him the first time, speaking to him in a vision, because he wanted him to see something. And what's interesting is how the Lord dealt with him to tell him that he was going to give him seed, because Abraham was saying, I have no seed. Well, everyone has seed, but Abraham could not see beyond himself. So at one point, the Lord takes him outside and says, look, behold, look at the stars and count them if you're able. And the Lord said that he was going to make his generation, his people, his posterity, as many as the stars in heaven. But we know that something happened in the heavens according to the Hebrew word. It says, it's actually telling us that God did something. He moved things in the heavens so that this movement would show him that he was not just going to stand still, but that he was going to have a posterity that was going to last forever. Abraham is the father of our faith. And so he gave him a vision with words in it. And so he kept his vision straight on the message of what he wanted to say. Now, in Psalms 119, going back, it says to turn away, to pass me over to the other side, carry me, take me away from the transgression. So obviously, this person, or the person that wrote it, had in mind a transgression. What is a transgression? A breaking of the law. Well, it's different from the word iniquity. Iniquity is something that is twisted, is wicked. And the Bible tells us that in Psalm 51, that David said that he was brought forth into the world by sin, or in sin, or as a sinner, actually. And he said, I was shapen in iniquity, because iniquity is something that we grow up with. We see things and it attaches itself to us and it becomes part of our life. It could be anger, it could be anything, but whatever it is, it shapes us, and we fight with that for the rest of our lives. And I'm sure that many of us can attest to that this morning. He says, turn away. Now we also see in in Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1, it says, now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Babylon, or Chebar, that the heavens were open and I saw visions of God. The reason that God took Ezekiel the priest to the rivers of Babylon is because he wanted to show him something, but first he had to give him a vision. He had to show him where he was. He was not going to be able to bring the word of God to the captives the way he did unless he sat by the river of Babylon and looked at his condition, looked at the condition of slavery. Remember that the reason that the people went into Babylon is because they were disobedient to God. They kept worshiping idols. They kept offending the law of God. And finally, the Lord told Jeremiah, tell them that I'm going to take them into captivity for 70 years. And the Lord fulfilled his word. But now watch this. While they were there, God even prospered them there, but they suffered. And God had a message that he wanted to give his people to turn them away from the vanity of Babylon. And he spoke to Ezekiel in a vision. He gave him sight to see. Now here's interesting. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 24, verse 5, "Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, like these good figs, so will I acknowledge them that are carried away captive to Judah, whom I have sent out of this place into the land of the Chaldeans for their good." You see, because they turned away from God and went into vanity and did not stay on the path of righteousness, but they crossed over to the other side, it affected them to the point that God had to take them into captivity to teach them a lesson. And the Bible says that when they came out, do you know something? They came out of Babylonian and they never committed idolatry again in the sense of having idols, even to this day. But they had idols in their hearts still. And see, that's where vanity kicks in. We see things and we run after those things and it affects our heart. Now watch this now. In Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 13, it says, "For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living water, and dug out for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water." You know, there's a story of a farmer that went out with his son in the morning to fish, and they caught some fish, and the son wanted to keep one of them or two of them alive. And so they had a cistern by their farm, and so the boy put water in it to put the fish in it, just so that he could have it overnight. And the father told them, "Son, that cistern is no good. It does not hold water." But the son was persistent, and he put water, and he put the fish in it. And the next day when he came, the fish was dead. The water was gone. And he said, "Dad, how come the fish die?" He says, "Because there's a crack in the cistern. It cannot hold water." And this is what God was telling these people. They dug out for themselves cisterns that were cracked. And that's what vanity is. That's what it brings us to. It brings us to a point where we do things for ourselves, and God says, you're doing something that's cracked. It's not going to be able to hold the substance of life. And that's why the psalmist here, he cries out and he says, "Turn away mine eyes." Now the word "eye" here is the word ayim. Ayim. Ayim simply means an eye. Okay, but there are three letters that make the word ayim. And that is the eye, the power of the hand, and the connection to that which belongs to men, or is a connection to men. And so obviously to turn away from God into vanity, you're going to follow somebody. You're going to follow somebody, and that's what we have to be careful of. You see, there's a lot of people in our lives, and sometimes with all the things that they do and all the things that they say, we get caught up in that stream, in that way. And if you look, that way is wide. The Bible tells us that Jesus said that when we spoke about the narrow road and the straight gate, he said, take that way. And he said it's a hard road. It's not easy, but the road to hell is wide, and many already travel it. And so having our eyes on the things which mean nothing, which are empty, which is cracked, we become entangled. You know, that we're going back to turn away. It's the word abar. Yeah, like a bar, like getting out of the bar. But it doesn't mean that. At least for some of us, we need to get out of the bars, drinking and having all kinds of secular fun, which may not be pleasing in the eyes of God. But the word abar is three words. And here we have the word ayim, or the letter ayim, the bet, and the resh, which means the eye of the house that belongs to the leader. Whenever we turn away from the path of righteousness, we are going in our own way and we're building our own house. Remember, Jesus said, if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to have that arm cut off. Watch this, and not enter into hell. Well, we know that he was speaking in a form that people needed to watch what they were doing. Why? Because if you have somebody or something in your life that causes you to turn away to a life of vanity, it's better to cut it off. And I'm talking about even family members, friends, places that we go. See, all of these things are dangerous to us, and God warns us. Now, what's interesting is that he says, turn away my eyes from beholding, from looking at. Is an expression of being separate, having a separation. He says, Lord, turn away my eyes, separate my eyes. His prayer was, Lord, don't let me turn to vanity. His heart, something was driving him, something was enticing him. He says, Lord, please turn away my eyes from beholding, from looking at, from separating myself from that which is right, from vanity. Now watch this, look. Behold from vanity. What is vanity? Well, I don't know if men know much about vanity. Women will probably know more about vanity. But here, the man, he tells us, is empty. It's an empty way. It's nothingness. Okay? It's a speech about something that is worthless. It's a conduct that has no life in it. And so sometimes we get caught up in the vanity. Oh, yes, and men do get caught up in vanity with their cars and their clothes and all this stuff. So we all have the sin of vanity in us, okay? So be careful that what you're looking at and what you're doing doesn't take you down a path that is empty, that has no life in it. But look what he says. From vanity, and quicken thou me, bring me to life. Now, what's interesting is that the Bible tells us in Romans chapter 8, and it tells us that, and you can look at verse 12 down, that here Paul says that we have an obligation to cut off the flesh. To cut off the flesh. Why? Because it is not profitable. And he says, but the Spirit of Christ that quickened him from death unto life is the same Spirit that quickens us when we are in a dead situation. And all we have to do simply is turn from our wicked ways and turn to God and say, God, give me life. Help me to see what you want me to see, and quicken thou me. Give me life to continue. Now he says, quicken me so that I will come back to the way. So he says here, turn away mine eyes from beholding vanity, and quicken thou me in the way. And we know again that the way here is the word derek. Derek, the door of the righteous hand, the door that holds the shepherd's hand. Help me to get back to that place, to be led by you, the master, the one that knows all things. And in doing so, we will live a life that is righteous before God. You know, again, let me just go here, quicken. The word quicken is chaya, which means life. But look at the letters here. There's something interesting here. There is the letter of the fence of the hand that has power, that gives you life or gives you the ability to see out of a window. So he said, Lord, take me from this situation that is dead and bring me to a place of fencing me in, keeping me strong. Let me see the power of your hand and help me to see clearly out of the window of righteousness, that I may see the good land. Turn away from one window to the other window. That's what vanity is. We turn away from one thing to look at it that has nothing to do with God, and it is vanity. Have yourself a wonderful Spirit-filled day, and remember that you are called to walk on the path of righteousness. Don't turn away from that which is right unto the way that is wrong. God bless.